What's up, everybody? Damon here, and in today's gaming news, FromSoftware comments on its future single-player plans. 007 First Light is a big hit, but more data shows the sad state of physical game sales. This is your Daily Fix. Developer FromSoftware is gearing up for the Duskbloods with a network test, coming off its most recent game, Elden Ring Nightreign, which is a cooperative multiplayer experience, and now PvPvE with the Duskbloods. You might be wondering if the studio has another single-player game lined up. Rest assured, FromSoft isn't putting all its eggs into the multiplayer basket. As part of an interview we had with FromSoftware president and the Duskbloods director, Hidetaka Miyazaki, we asked if doing back-to-back multiplayer games was indicative of the direction the team is going. He reassured us that FromSoftware is not done making single-player games. He said, "We still have a heavy focus on single-player content as well. This is just something that happened to work out the way it did." It's funny because there was never really any big plan that these two games would both release next to each other. He concluded by telling us, "If anything, it's like the more you work on something multiplayer for a long time, it scratches that itch only to want to make something single-player again." Be sure to read IGN's full interview with Miyazaki, where he talks about partnering with Nintendo, future plans for the Duskbloods, and more. Moving on, James Bond video game blockbuster 007 First Light has sold 4 million copies in just 3 months. That's with the game's Nintendo Switch 2 launch still to come. Today, IO Interactive recommitted to updating First Light further with an array of post-launch updates, including a new Game Plus campaign option, a fresh mission starring Pirate King Bama, portrayed by Lenny Kravitz, plus additional tax sim challenges, weapons and cosmetics, as well as a photo mode. A sequel hasn't been announced yet, but seems inevitable. What else is IO working on? Well, last month, it was forced to scale back work on its under-wraps fantasy RPG, codenamed Project Dragon, which had been partly funded by cash from Xbox, which has its own problems that we all know about. And speaking of video game sales, new data shows that physical software dollar sales plunged to an all-time July low of $85 million in the US. That's the worst total since tracking began in 1995. Circana's July video games report reveals that for the 2026 year-to-date period, sales of physical software for PlayStation hardware accounted for 32% of total US consumer spending on new physical games. Games made for Nintendo platforms made up 63% of year-to-date spending on new physical software. Xbox wasn't mentioned. The data comes hot on the heels of Sony's shock announcement that it will end the production of physical discs for PlayStation games in 2028. The announcement has sparked a significant backlash online, although it remains to be seen whether or not that will result in any real-world repercussions. When Sony announced its decision, it said it was simply following consumer trends that are supported by data like this from Circana. July was a particularly bad month for video game and hardware sales in the US, Circana's data reveals. Total US video game spending dropped 10% year on year, with hardware spending plummeting 29% off the back of a tough comparison with the launch of Nintendo Switch 2, as well as price rises for PlayStation and Xbox. Circana said hardware spending fell to a low not seen since July 2020, when pandemic-fueled sellouts and logistics challenges made finding new video game hardware extremely difficult. Subscription spending was the only category showing growth in July versus a year ago. In a poor month all around, Call of Duty Black Ops 2 was projected as the best-selling game of July in dollar sales, driven by the release of a PS4 and PS5 port. And that is your Daily Fix for Thursday, August 20th. Now that you're caught up on the news, watch the new trailer for a Golden Axe animated show. Could be interesting, I don't know. I'm Damon Hatfield, and for all your video game news, stay tuned to IGN.